Good evening. Welcome to primary. We appreciate you joining us tonight. We're going to wait just one more minute while others are logging in. Thank you so much for spending your evening with us. We're excited to share some ELA strategies with you. My name is Mrs. Ingrid Bailey. I'm the primary principal, and tonight you will get to have a wonderful presentation by Miss Phyllis Anthony, who is our social studies administrator in primary, and Miss Natalie Seitler, who is our language arts administrator. So we will go ahead and get started at 6:35. Thank you again for joining us.
Thank you, Miss Bailey. We love you. We're glad you're here tonight. And we love all of you parents and learning coaches and students who have joined us as well. Um, we're super excited that you're excited about a brand new school year, which is almost, believe it or not, halfway over. But we are learning new things this year, and we're excited about our journey. And we know that the best is yet to come, so we want to welcome you aboard. Tonight, Miss Natalie Seitler and I are going to share a little bit with you about the ELA strategies that your children are using in K2 as they're learning this year. Um, I can honestly say we have some of the best teachers in K2, and they really put their all into the learning. And we know that the students are sitting in front of a cute computer, so the teachers do a lot of super amazing things to get the kids up and involved and engaged, and it's just amazing to watch. So we're going to talk to you a little bit about our ELA strategies that we use. And our agenda for tonight is that we'll talk about our classroom expectations. We'll also talk about some of the platforms that we use here in K2, and we'll talk about some of our ELA strategies. Okay. So at this time, I will turn it over to Ms. Natalie Seitler, who is your administrator for ELA.
All right, everybody, welcome. Thank you so much for coming and joining us tonight at our parent university. Like Phyllis said, I am our ELA administrator for primary, so I'm going to go through some strategies for reading at home and some strategies for reading at school. So we're going to look at some ELA strategies. We're going to start with some classroom expectations, looking at modules, how to locate them. And I know most of you are familiar with that. We do have some new families that are probably joining us tonight. So if so, welcome to GCA and welcome to primary. Work from Canvas modules. So our assignments are listed every day. So if you look right here, let me grab my pointer. And let's make this a little bit bigger so you guys can see. Every day, if you open up your course, you will see a daily assignment. And then if there is a graded assignment for that day, no, there's not one every day, but if there is a graded assignment for that day, you will see that under the daily work. But every day in your different modules, you'll have something in there. And then the way you find that is in your when you log into your course, you'll see over here, you'll see home, announcements, modules, jigsaw. They might not be in quite this order, but you can definitely find the module app right here, the module button, I should say, and it will take you over to the modules for that content area. The graded work is something that goes into our Canvas gradebook. So you'll be able to know that everything that's graded is labeled as graded. So anytime you have a graded assignment, make sure that your student is completing that because that's something that will count for them in the grade book. Daily work does not count in the grade book, but we definitely recommend them using the daily work for their just to learn more about the content. All of our daily work is based on the standard that they've been learning in class for that day. So make sure your students following along with that daily work. Like I said, it's not required. It's definitely strongly suggested, And it's a very important resource that we use, especially here in primary, as our students are learning those very foundational standards. FLVS lessons. So we use FLVS in primary, and those FLVS daily lessons are part of the daily work. Make sure that if your student can't complete all of the work that's in those FLVS modules, at least let them get started and work through some of it. If you say, hey, they already know this, move on to something that they don't know. Those modules are pretty long, I know, and they can be pretty time consuming as well. So just make sure your student, like I said, they don't have to complete every page of every lesson from every day, but make sure they're working in that enough to get the standard across and the mastery of the standard that they need. Um, some of the platforms that we use here at GCA are found in Clever. And so I know Clever is bookmarked on most of your computers, if not all of your computers now. So you should be able to get to Clever pretty quickly. Some of the resources that we use in K-2, I'm going to explain them for you. But just because I think sometimes we don't always know exactly what resources we have, and we have some great resources here at GCA. So the first one I'm going to talk about is Sora. The Sora is the student reading app. This is basically an online library. You can click into Sora, open that app up, and find just about any book that you could find if you went to your public library. You can check the book out, have your student read through those books, and then you can return them and check out other books. So I definitely recommend using Sora. I know that in some of the modules that we build that Sora, one of the daily work assignments is to go into Sora and read a book. So with K-2, your student may be reading a small book. It may be a book that they read in one night or in maybe 5 minutes if they're, especially in kindergarten. They may be picking out letters in a book. Sora has books like chapter books. If you have a second grade student who's reading on second grade level or above, your student can find some chapter books. All right, there'll be books in there on anything that they could be interested in. If they're interested in dinosaurs or cars or princesses, there's all kinds of books in Sora that they can go find. MobyMax is another one of our platforms that we use here at GCA. A lot of times your teachers will assign things in MobyMax. If your teacher's not assigning work in MobyMax, there's still a lot that you can complete in MobyMax on your own. If you log into MobyMax, you can search by standard. There's also sight work practice. There's phonics practice. There's all kinds of different things inside MobyMax. If you look in MobyMax, if there's assignments, you'll see them under the assignments tab when you open MobyMax. If your if your teacher wants them to do a specific standard or specific activity or assignment in there, you'll see that under the assignments tab. But if there's nothing been assigned, if you don't see anything in their daily work or the teacher doesn't send them to that during maybe some independent work time, MobyMax is still a great resource for our K-2 babies. And they also have all content. So there's math work, there's science work, there's social studies work, and there is ELA work. So it's not just an ELA platform, even though we're talking about ELA tonight. It's not just an ELA platform. MobyMax is something that you can get resources and pull things for all content areas. Learning A to Z is something that I know we use a lot in K-2. Even our phonics program is coming from Learning A to Z, and their phonics part of it, the reading A to Z actually, and then they have a phonics section of that. So we've been using that for our phonics this year. But inside Reading A to Z, there are a lot of books that students have access to. The difference between Reading A to Z and Sora is our Reading A to Z books are level. So they're going to be at your student's instructional level. Those are going to be books that we know that, they can go into Sora and really pick out any book. But Reading A to Z, the teachers have them set to where the books are guaranteed to be something that they can read, but also something that will challenge them a little bit. So they can move up as they read through those books. There are quizzes in Learning A to Z they can take to make sure they're comprehending what they're reading. But Learning A to Z is a great tool for reading for phonics. So like I said, there's some other activities in there as well. Head Sprout is something that you can do in Learning A to Z, and I know we use that in first grade, especially. We use Head Sprout. I think we use it in kindergarten a little bit. But in Learning A to Z, if they log into Head Sprout, it does a lot of phonics work with them, and that's a great tool for our K and first grade kiddos for that phonics work. In second grade, we use a platform called MindPlay. Now, this is not available for kindergarten and first. They would use Head Sprout and Learning A to Z for something that was similar to this. In Mind Play in second grade, they take a diagnostic at the very beginning of the school year. So, you new students that are enrolling, you'll see that they, and I hope you guys could be able to hear me. I just realized my microphone was up, so I apologize if you've not been able to hear me very well. In Mind Play, they will take a diagnostic at the very beginning of the school year or whenever they start, and the Mind Play platform will actually place them at a level. So it may say, hey, your student knows these words, knows this special sound, but your student struggles with this sound. Maybe they struggle with the IGHT sound. Mind Play is going to start them exactly where they need to start. And then they'll work through those sounds, they'll work through sentence structure, and comprehension, all those things. And Mind Play, basically, as your student progresses, the level in Mind Play progresses as well. So it's a very tailored, very specific to your child. So make sure that in any of these programs, especially with MobiMax and Mind Play, if you're starting out and there is a diagnostic, that you let your student take that by themselves. And the reason being is that Mind Play is not going to help your student if you help them take the test, because it's not going to be what they need to do. All right. Mind Play is only going to work if it's actually what the student needs. So those are some of the platforms that we use here in primary. Your teacher may use some other ones. I know we have some second grade teachers that will use Writable. And then, of course, we have Write Score assessments that you find in Clever. But these are the main ones that we use here for ELA and K-2. All right, so now we're going to talk about some different ELA strategies. We're going to talk about strategies in the classroom and then strategies at home. How can I help my child become a better reader? I taught first grade here at GCA before I became our ELA administrator, and I would talk with parents at the beginning of the school year. And one question I would always ask, what goal do you have for your students to be? Where do you want them to be? What do you want to see them do in first grade? What's one goal? And about 90 to 95% of the parents that I talked to said, I want to see them become a better reader. And so we know that that is very crucial. It's very foundational in primary that your students learn to read. I was very excited that our schedule allowed for some extra ELA time. We got a phonics block in kindergarten and first grade. We got an ELA reading block, and we got an ELA writing block. So I was super excited that our schedule allowed for that this year, because it's so foundational for our students in primary to learn to read. They have to learn to read, they have to learn to write, or they're never going to succeed as they move up into elementary school. So we're going to talk about some strategies that you can use in the classroom and at home for helping your student learn to read or become a better reader. So in the classroom, as your teacher is teaching, or maybe the students are working on an independent activity, if your student comes across a word, I know a lot of times as parents, and I do this with my own two kiddos, they're a little bit older than primary now, but I know we want to say, hey, that word's this, and just give them the word instead of having them work through it. Have your students sound out those words. If they don't know a word, use some context clues and help them maybe look, well, what does this word start with? Let's sound it out. Let's figure it out. If it's a word that doesn't sound out, maybe a sight word, you can help them out with that, but definitely give them the ability to kind of work through that before you just give them the answer. It allows them to kind of use that critical thinking part of their brain and really work to figure things out on their own. Allow students to answer teachers without assistance. I have many times heard learning coaches in the background saying, the answer is 4. And then the student's like, oh, I know it's 4. Allow your students to answer teachers without assistance, because as coming from that, from that teacher perspective, if your student needs help with that standard, or needs help with that word, or help with that maybe that sentence structure or whatever it is, if you're giving them the answer, then I don't know for sure if they know the answer, if I don't hear that you're helping them out, and I don't they may not get the extra focus that they need. So allow them to answer teachers without assistance. I think that is very key, and like I said, I know we all want our kiddos to succeed. We want them to do well, but I guarantee you that the teachers will be a lot better. Will be able to help your student a lot more if they know exactly where they're at. So make sure they're allowed to answer that. If they get it wrong, that's perfectly fine. I've always told my kiddos, I would much rather you get the answer wrong. We're going to work through it. We're going to find the right answer, and then we're going to move on, right? And that way your student's going to learn in the process instead of just being told the answer and moving on. All right. Allow them to participate in class. We do encourage students to be on camera. and as much as possible on the microphone, working in the right whiteboard. I know our teachers allow them to participate in those areas. So allow your student that chance to participate in class. Let them turn their camera on and just really engage in that lesson. And then when they are writing, and like I said, we have a writing block this year, and I'm super excited about that. But it's okay if our students don't spell words the right way. We're in K to 2. Sometimes they're writing some bigger words and they don't know how to spell it, and that's perfectly fine. They can sound that out. We call it inventive spelling. So make sure you're allowing that inventive spelling in your students, and it doesn't matter even if they're in second grade. They still may there's words out there that I have to look up from time to time. So don't think for 2 seconds that it's they need to learn, they need to know how to spell everything correctly. Some of the things that we would see as they're starting to write, I play soccer, and you can see here, this is what they sounded out. All right, they used the beginning sound, they used the middle sounds, they used the ending sound over here, and they were writing a word. They were actually writing a sentence in this case. They can either read it to the teacher, or you see here how their learning coach has written what the student was actually saying as they turned it in. But they can read that back to the teacher, and the teacher can understand exactly what they say. I always love to see my first graders type in the chat box. And I love to always try to figure out what they were saying because they used inventive spelling, and sometimes that was fun for me to try to figure out exactly what they were saying in the chat box. So allow them that chance to learn how to spell things on their own. And then, like I said, even if they're writing a sentence, allow them to just take that time to sound it out and use that inventive spelling. As they get into a little bit older, a little bit more distinguished writing, you'll see that maybe some of the words are spelled right, maybe some of them are not. All right. So there may be words that they know. All right. Like the word love, they may know I. Even down here, you see the word great. If I were looking at that word as a first or second grade student, I could definitely see that word would sound great. So definitely look at them learning how to use spacing in their words. You see here that this little student put a dot in between his writing to know to leave a space. All right, over here we don't have any spacing because the student's not to the point to where he or she understands to put space in here. This student is. So allow them to write recognizable words as well as sound out the words for spelling to write sentences. You can see the student writes sentences from left to right. They're aware of the space between them, and they are looking at some different punctuation. All right. So these are some of the stages. Now, this is not all the stages of writing. We could spend an entire parent university on just the stages of writing, but these are some examples of ways that you can help your child. If we have, kindergarten and first grade students turning in, writing, and everything is spelled perfectly, and the sentences are, excellent. We have spacing and capital letters and punctuation exactly the way that it is. We may have some kindergarten students that can do that. I'm not saying that. But, for the most part, they're learning how to do that. So allow them the chance to do that on their own and learn exactly how that works. All right, some other ways to support students reading in the classroom are with small groups, and we also have win groups. So every Friday, you'll notice in our ELA classrooms, and this is across actually school-wide that we do across our district, we have what we call win groups. And these groups are, the acronym WIN stands for what I need. All right, so these students, your teachers work very hard to group the students to figure out exactly, this group of students needs this standard, this group of students need this standard, this group of students need this, and they put them into groups based on what they need. All right, so you may have a Friday where you are working with a teacher and you may be in one of the groups. You may have a Friday where you're not necessarily in a group with a teacher, but you're in another group and you have other things that you're working on, and that's perfectly okay. We totally understand that. Our class sizes don't always allow for your student to be in every single small group. So I want you to understand that as well. They're not being ignored. They're not being, left on their own. And I'm going to talk about that down here at the independent work time. But just know that our teachers are working hard to put them into groups. I know our content administrators are helping them as well, making sure they have the resources that they can as they're pulling those small groups and those win groups. A lot of our ELA teachers do small groups on a daily basis. So you may be in a weekly rotation of a small group reading group, and then on Fridays have win groups as well. Some of the things we're looking at implementing this year are high impact practices. And you say, what are those? What are high impact practices? Those are things that allow the students to really take their thoughts to the next level, right? We're looking at some higher order thinking. That's one of the high impact practices, or higher order thinking questions, right? It promotes that critical thinking and encourages them to think beyond just a yes or no question, right? And a lot of times you'll hear our teachers use why. Okay, that's the answer. Why did you choose that answer? And allow them to kind of think through and talk through that process. I noticed when I taught first grade that I would have a student that would answer a question, and he would have, his exact, reasoning behind it. And I'd have another student who got the same answer, but he had a completely different reason. Well, I saw this here, or I did it this way, right? Especially like number talks when they're working problems out in their head. So allowing them to think kind of moves into our next high impact practice, which is academic discussion, allowing them the chance to kind of talk through and work through those things that they're thinking. And then obviously we don't have a lot of time, I guess, that they are communicating one-on-one with other students, but I know the teachers allow them to kind of work together and answer questions together as well. And then the last thing I want to talk about is something that I know that we can kind of feel like when they're doing independent work time that they're not getting what they need. But I want you to understand how valuable the independent work time is, especially with our K-2 students. If they're doing an assignment that the teacher has picked out for them and they know that that's what they need, that independent work time can be very valuable. All right, so during the small group times or even every day during their independent work time, let your student complete those activities. Make sure they're working and they're doing those. Make sure they're doing them on their own. Feel free to kind of work them, if they're having a question about it or they need some assistance, you're definitely, allowed to help them through that independent work time practice. But those things can be very crucial to their learning, all right, to their grasping that standard, all right, because they may see it in one of our platforms, or maybe it's a Google Doc they're working on. They may see the standard that the teacher taught, but they may see it in a different manner, right? All students learn differently. We all know that. And so this independent work time is definitely something that's very crucial to our students. So don't think that, that's something that we're giving them for busy work. That independent work time is carefully created and crafted and put together for your students to make sure that they have a time to work out the standard they've been taught in class. All right, so moving on, we're going to talk about now how you can use some of these strategies at home. What can you do at home to make your student a better reader, right? School's done. What can I do at home to help my child learn how to read? The first thing, obviously, is read every day. Read to your child. Go into Sora, choose a book, and if you're reading to a first or kindergarten or first grade student, and they're interested in dinosaurs, and you see a dinosaur book that maybe it's a kid's book, may not be something they can read. You can read it to them, right? Read to your child. Have your child read to you. If there's words that they can read or sentences they can read, have them read that to you. All right. Have your child retell the story. If you're reading a story about I always go to dinosaurs for some reason. I think because my first grade boys last year were obsessed with dinosaurs. So that's kind of where I always gravitate to. But have your child retell the story when they're reading about it. And then older siblings can help. If you have some elementary school students, middle school students, they can read with your child as well. Allow your child, your primary grade kiddos to read to your older siblings, read to their older siblings, and then allow the older siblings to read to your primary kiddos. They can learn so much just from reading with those older kiddos. We do recommend about 20 minutes of daily reading. I know they're going to get some of that in class during our independent work time and things like that during their daily work, and that's one of the reasons you'll see that a lot in daily work, especially in ELA, because we want to make sure those students are reading every single day. All right. Even if that's reading it to them or them reading it, we want them to read every day. One of the things I like to do is start with a book walk, right? When you start a new book, look through the book together before you start to read it, right? Look through, find those pictures. Let's look and see if we can find some words that we know. Have them make predictions. What do you think is going to happen in this book? Who do you think the characters are? And you can bring in some of those standards that your student's been working on in class at home, all right? What are the characters of the story? Ooh, where does the story take place? You remember what that's called? That's called the setting. And so all those different things kind of reinforce what your students learning. It's not only helping their reading ability, it's also helping their standard and content ability with ELA. And then lastly, we're going to talk about writing. Encourage your students to write daily. I know at GCA, that's one of the things that a lot of learning coaches have asked, I want some more writing for my kiddo. They need more writing because we're on a computer, they're typing answers, they're working on the computer, they're doing Google Docs, they're working on platforms. They don't get a lot of actual pencil to paper writing. So encourage them to have a daily journal. All right. Maybe have them write one thing from every class they learned that day. Right. Just write one sentence, one word. If they're in kindergarten, have them tell you the word. You can write it, and then they can write it underneath it. Right. That way, they're still getting the practice, even though they don't know how to spell the word. They don't know how to write the sentence. You can write it. They can copy it, and they're still getting that writing practice. Another thing I saw a good idea was make a book together, right? As you're going through, have your students, draw pictures, right? And you're going to put a caption at the bottom of the picture, and then you're going to move to the next page and make a book, kindergarten book, a first grade book, a second grade book, and then that's something that you can hold on to, forever. So those are some ideas, I guess, for you working with your student at home. Like I said, we know that reading is very crucial, very foundational to our students here in primary. So we definitely want to give them the best of everything that we have so they can succeed as they move on in primary and out of primary as they get ready to go to third grade. All right, so that's what I had for you tonight. Thank you for coming. What questions? If you have questions, you can raise your hand using those emojis. We'll be able to go through and answer any questions that you might have. I really appreciate your time, you coming out, spending some time with us tonight. And like I said, I'll be around to answer any questions you might have, especially about ELA strategies. I see some hands up, so I'm going to go ahead and grab those microphones.
Yes,
Okay.
Tyra, we have a question, Nellie, from Tyra B.
So I love the idea about the journal and making the book together. Now, my question has more to do with what the main room before our pull-out rooms had said. I think it was either Jennifer or Michelle that was talking about nucleus, and I have already reached out to my attendance specialist, and they didn't have some of the answers for this. So my question is, last year we didn't do nucleus, so it's new to me this year. Shouldn't the computer log it all to where the parents didn't have to do this? But more importantly than that, on the days where the school is called out, whether it's because of inclement weather or the teacher needs to call out because they're human too, or testing, why should we log in as if our students did 5 hours of school that day on the computer when they did not?
This is Mrs. Bailey. I'm trying to find my webcam on here too, so let me get to that. But I appreciate that question. We understand where you're coming from. The 5 hours, there are some legal requirements for how much schooling students have to attend minimum during the day. So that's part of where some of those numbers come from. But we do not in our primary leadership team do anything at all with attendance or nucleus. So I also don't want to give you any incorrect information because that team and your compliance specialist, they are really the best ones to give any of those details and explanations. So we're going to try to keep our focus here to ELA. Totally understand that question, but I don't want to steer you wrong either.
Okay,
Good. Thank
Katrina.
you so much. I loved what Natalie said about the journal thing, so I think my son will be doing that with me that's starting tomorrow. So thank you.
Yeah, that's definitely a great tool, especially with our little kiddos. Like I said, just giving them the chance to not only reflect on what they learned for the day, but also that writing time. All right,
Okay,
Katrina M has a question.
Mhm.
The pens that was sent out to help the kiddos learn how to write, let's say a Nearpod and things like that. Are those like the manipulatives and the kids keep them at the end of the year, or are they like the computers and the other rest of the equipment and they have to go back?
That is a great question. Miss Bailey, do you have any answers to that? The little pen, the mouse pens that they received? I'm assuming that would be something that would go back with the computer.
Yes. Yeah, that'll be equipment that's returned with the computer. It's loaned like the GCA computer is.
Awesome. Jasmine, I saw you had your hand up.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Um, I have a second grader. I reached out to his ELA teacher about him not being able to read very well, and she's gone now. So, do I have to restart that whole process? They put him in AIM classes, but she said she was going to put some other paperwork in. Do I have to restart that, or should I just keep waiting?
Hey, I am Heather Bishop. I am the Instructional Support Services Assistant Principal here in Primary Grade Band, and I can assist you with that. I will drop my email here in the chat, and if you will send me an email, then I can help you make sure that I have that information that we can move forward with those next steps. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Shayna.
Hello. I have a few questions. One, my son, he's in the first grade, and he has difficult reading to the point to where like he will understand the words with no problem if you sound it out with him, but when he's by himself, he like shuts down. So what do I need to do to because the teacher's asking me for him to uh, let him do it by himself, but he's like struggling trying to read, and this is his first time being in first grade because he jumped from kindergarten to first grade in a matter of 2 months. So I'm trying to figure out what do I need to do, or is there some way to where he can be in some type of remedial or tutoring to get his reading up or something?
So as far as like if the teachers, you're saying the teacher is calling on him in class to read, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yeah. So allow him to read for the teacher, especially as right now our teachers may still be working on grouping our students into small groups, and then they'll work with those specific students on exactly what they need. And sometimes that takes a little bit of time, especially as we've had some more new kiddos coming in. But as far as some extra support, we can definitely look at that. But I would definitely just allow that to kind of come through your teacher. Allow your student to read for the teacher, and then kind of move, go through that
Is
way. That way, your teacher has the ability to know exactly what your student knows, exactly what the level your student's at, and what your student needs help, or as far as like academic help.
okay, so that's even though he's just now starting to learn how to read.
Right. So our first grade students, we do have some first grade students that are just starting to learn how to read. And our teachers are working in their phonics classrooms, especially teaching them some of those letters and sounds, and how to blend words together. So all of those things, we're still teaching first graders how to read very much every day. So don't think that your student's going to be, left behind because other first grade students are reading. We are definitely working every day in our phonics classroom to teach the kiddos how to read.
Okay, thank you.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Awesome. And if you ever need any assistance with anything, you can reach out to me. I've got some resources that I've used in the past for K and one. And if you need anything like that, definitely email me and I can send that out to you as well. Awesome. Lisa S., I cannot turn your microphone on. China, were you going to say something else? I'm sorry.
I was saying thank you, ma'am.
Let's go with Wafik. Wafik.
Oh, yes, it's Wafik. How's everybody doing?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank
Sorry.
you. Sorry.
No problem. It's all good. My question more so related to is a tech issue. And I spoke with someone earlier about logging in as far as attendance is concerned. But the other part was that I think a lady, a few people back mentioned the whole pen situation. Now, I don't know what that sound is, but trying to use that pen, I put everything in right, and I'm pretty techy, but I can't understand how to use this pen. You plug it in and it only goes in one direction, and I don't know what else. it's supposed to. I'm sure that you're supposed to be able to use it on the actual screen. But is that a tech person that we can reach out to, or is that something that you guys can assist me with? And I'm sure I'm not the only parent that has a problem with that. And if I am, kudos to you guys. But this is
That
That
actually
and
and actually
in
in
the
the
mouth.
mouth.
So
what
when you
phone
So
plug
when
is
it
you
that?
plug it
into
into the
the
computer with the
little
little
USB
USB side,
Yes.
side, if you turn
turn
it
it
on
on
the
the
side,
side, there's like a
at the
little,
bottom of
at
the
the bottom of the
mouse
mouse,
has like
Yeah.
the
has
little
like the
red. You
little
guys
red.
can
You guys
yeah.
can, yeah.
You'll see it
You'll
on
see
the
it on the
bottom of the
bottom of
mouse
the
pen.
mouse pen.
And so
And
that
so
side
that
has to
side
be
has to be
down just
down
like
just
you would
like
use
you
a
would use a
pencil or a
pencil or a
pen
pen
on the
on the
table or
table or
desk.
desk.
Hmm.
It turns
It
that
turns that
into
into
the
the
yeah, mouse
mouse
turns
turns
basically
basically
into
into
a
a pen.
Right. So I'm able to turn it on, and I'm able
pen.
to m- move, I guess, the cursor on the screen, but you can't go left or you can't go right, and you can't actually write on the screen or change the color and etc. I can't do any of that. So I know how to turn it on. I know how to plug it in, plug the USB piece in. I know how to actually
Right.
turn it on, and I see the actual little cursor on the screen. It only moves. I can roll that little thing, and it rolls up and down, but I can't move anything. Click on anything else on the actual screen.
Okay.
Okay.
Um,
Um,
Miss Bailey,
Miss
would you
Bailey, would you
recommend him
recommend him
calling tech
calling tech
support to kind
support
of
to
help
kind
with
of help
that?
with that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, well,
Okay, well,
your
your
microphone is
microphone is not
not going. I know we're getting a lot of feedback. There we go. Sometimes that happens. Yes, if her suggestion doesn't work, I would try calling tech support and just ask them to see. We just received ours as well, and I'll be honest, I'm still playing around with it myself. So I have not gotten to an expert on that either, but I'm very excited to have it. We'll figure it out.
If it makes you feel any better, I started trying to use it upside down before I realized the right way it was supposed to be used. I was like, this isn't working. And then I was like, well, it helps if I turn it around the right way. So, yeah, we all are learning how to use the mouse pens for sure. But I hope that answered your question.
Okay,
All right,
let's
Lisa
go
has a question.
Lisa S. Yes.
Hello, how are you guys doing today? I have a question. I'm already concerned about the kinder sizes at GCA in regards to the large size, making sure that all the students are kind of getting the material that they need. But in regards to the small groups, you indicated that they are dispersed or separated based on like the teacher going through and doing an assessment. So what if your child or even other children are not necessarily in the same kind of standard? Are you supposed to supplement to make sure that your child is getting what they need? Because if you have a child, like let's say my son, he can read, he's like middle part, but then you have some kids that might not know how to read or some who can read, better than him. So they're not collectively all together. So do you supplement to make sure that you're not leaving behind the kids that are like, maybe need a little more help, or also like the middle, because the advanced might be getting, like they might get it, and then the other kids might not. I just want to make sure we're not leaving anyone out in regards to what they're able to get, regardless if it's my child or not. I want all the kids to be able to get something out of that.
Yes. Oh, I see Natalie shaking her head. You have some suggestions too. So we were both looking to see who was going to talk. As far as the class sizes, those are set by our board. So we do follow the class sizes that are set by the GCA board. We do have a feedback button on our website that I welcome you to give feedback about that as well. Um, for the small groups, absolutely, we're with you with what you're saying. We do not ever want anyone to get left behind. We know that filling in the gaps for students that need help are just as important as providing enrichment and going further for those who are ready for a little bit more. So that is what we try to do with our small groups. And to answer your question, yes, we do provide support for students wherever they are. We're just trying to make growth at whatever point meeting the standards that they're in. And the small groups are rearranged depending on the subject they're working on. It might be based on assessment. Sometimes it's just more informal, like it could be a ticket out the door from a previous class where the teacher can figure out who needs to work on something a little bit more. There's a lot of different ways that they do grouping for small groups. Ms. Seitler, did you have anything else you wanted to share?
Really, I was going to kind of say the same thing, and I guess it really depends on what the small group is. So our small group reading are going to be different than our win groups, right? So you may have students that, or your teacher may do her small groups, every day, And then the pair is also pulling small groups. So I guess it really kind of depends on the teacher, the way the teacher has the classroom set up as to exactly how the students are grouped, and then, like I said, who they're working with. And then, like I said, on Fridays or Wednesdays, and those are very standards based, looking at some of those ELA standards. But yes, we definitely never want to overlook those students. And I know our teachers are working very hard to make sure that the students that are, needing that extra support are getting it. The students that are needing, maybe like Ms. Bailey said, some enrichment, they're getting that as well. So
Okay,
yes,
thank
I
you so
definitely.
much. And I just
Awesome.
want to say, I think all the teachers that my child has are doing great. That really wasn't the concern. It was the concern in regards to the class size and being able to make sure that all students are being able to get resources.
Right. And like I said, all of those resources that I talked about in Canvas, or in Clever, excuse me, are available. And so if you ever feel like there's something that, your student needs, definitely you can go look in there as well.
Of course. Thank you so much.
Okay,
Awesome.
next
Thank
up
you.
was Waquita.
And thank you for the teacher shout out. We appreciate that.
Yes, definitely. We love hearing about how amazing our teachers. We know they're amazing, but we definitely love hearing it from you all as well. Jaquita, did you have a question? Am I saying the name right? I'm always so
Yes,
scared
you
I'm going to
said it
say the
right.
name wrong, so I apologize if I say it wrong.
You said it right. I'm sorry if I mispronounced some words. I have a speech impediment due to a stroke. But I have three questions. The first one is, how can I get my son? He in kindergarten. How can I get him a Chromebook now since I'm finna start working on the computer and I don't want to, go into his class time. I need to know how can I get him a computer now. And the second question is, y'all said something about a tutor. He having trouble. He can do math. He can add and subtract and everything like that, but he cannot identify his letters or read yet. And I'm trying to get him to identify his letters and read. So y'all said something about a tutor. How can I get that? I can't remember the third question.
You sound like me. I always forget the third question. Um, Thank you so much for those. Those are great questions. So the first one you asked about getting a Chromebook, and if you'll just check with your FEL, they can request that for you. They'd be happy to help with that for sure. And then now I'm trying to remember your second question, tutoring. So there's a couple different things. We have Tutor Me, which is a 24/7 service that the school pays for and provides a wonderful resource that GCA has. And you access that in Clever as well. Is that right, Miss Seitler? Is that in Clever? I see Miss Anthony too. Okay, good. I want to make sure I was saying the correct information. So yes, you can go on to Tutor Me and request a kindergarten tutor, and they usually they need something specific. So like you said, with letters and sounds or reading, if you have a specific assignment you want to get some help with, reading a certain book in our reading A to Z that we're using, something like that, they can work with your student on that. I would also definitely suggest that you talk to your child's teacher and find out what they suggest specifically for them. And I will tell you from teaching kindergarten myself, it is a slow process that can feel like on the day to day, no progress is being made or very little because it's just such it just can feel tedious and slow. I know from as a parent too, like just you just got to put in the practice every day and they will get there. So if your child is not, 100% identifying all letters and sounds, not reading yet, that's okay. I don't want you to think they're off track. That is totally typical for kindergarten, especially this time of year. But definitely talk to your child's teacher about that.
Yes, definitely. They are very much learning how to read. Like I said, we have a lot of first grade and even some second grade students that we're working on learning how to read. So we're still building that foundation across the board in K to 2. And I'm super thankful for our teachers. Like I said, they put in that effort and that time to make sure that their students are getting what they need.
I
I'll give
can
anybody else
remember the
a
third
chance
question now.
to. Uh,
The third question was about his attendance because last week he missed 2 days because he got sick, and the week before that he had to go to the court with his daddy because his dad had court and nobody was here to see him watch him work. So what is the how many days can he miss before it becomes a problem because I see in nucleus it turned red.
You for checking nucleus and staying on top of that. Just reach out to your compliance specialist. Give them a call, send an email tonight if you want, but make sure to check with them. I can't speak to the specific details of that because their team handles all of that, and I don't want to steer you in the wrong direction. But they can let you know what you need to provide for those dates and the details of that. So just definitely ask them for some help with it.
Okay, do we have any more
Awesome.
questions?
I had a question come in the chat. Like I said, I'll give everybody a chance to raise their hand if they have any more coming through. I did have a question in the chat. How do you help deal or have suggestions to deal with screen fatigue? So we do know our students are, on the screen a lot every day. I also know, we do have a few minutes in between class. If your students need to stand up and, kind of stretch for a second, that's perfectly fine. One thing that I've told my learning coaches in the past, if they have an assignment that they're working on for daily work that you can print it out, let them do it on paper instead of actually on the screen. So there are some things that you can do to kind of help, help them not be looking at the screen as much. We definitely understand that, they're here and they're learning online, and so they do get a lot of that screen time. But anything that you can print out, definitely print out and allow them to write, and that's good for their handwriting as well. But then, like I said, if they need a break, definitely, let them stand up and, kind of walk away for a minute, but come right back. We don't want them missing too much of class. We do understand if they need to kind of stand up and stretch for a second. I hope that helped. I hope that answered your question. If not, you can let me know. All right, Katrina has a question.
Um, there is a field trip coming up in the Augusta area on the 18th. Um, and I do want my daughter to go to it, but it is at the same time as her phonics class. And she has straight A's. Would it be more of a hindrance of taking her to the field trip, and would it count against her for the live classes? Because I know, and the kindergarten classes are required. So would that be held against her if she goes to that and it is a school function field trip?
Check. I know I'm going to keep saying it, but you got to check with your attendance specialist. I do know there is a policy on field trips, and there's a number of GCA field trips that a student can take, and there's criteria for getting excused. There is a process for that they can help you with. So we want you to be able to attend those. You'll just have to get in touch with your compliance specialist to get some help with that.
Okay, so I would still need to contact them even if it is a school function,
Yes,
school
and that's a
sanction.
great question. I appreciate you because that's really good for others to hear too. But yes, you should ahead of time go ahead and check in with them since it's something that will miss class. You don't want that to be an unexcused absence. So for sure check in with them.
Oh, and then I'm having difficulties with the socialization part. She is a very sociable butterfly. Are there any recommendations that you guys could help with us? Because I know I'm not the only parent that's having issues with making friends, local kids that go to GCA.
I hear you. I know that's always a question that we get asked because it's such an important one. I don't know if you're on Facebook, but there are some GCA Facebook groups where I know lots of learning coaches connect regionally. That's usually one of the things I suggest first. That in the outings that you mentioned, there's a lot of virtual outings as well, and we often have them during the lunch hour or after school, and those provide a lot of good times also where there can be more social interaction outside of academic.
Which I definitely have her do those, but she's not getting to communicate with her peers.
Understand?
And
Understand.
she's one that I'm having to like gently push her from hanging out with the teenagers, trying to guide and push her to hang out with kids her own age.
I understand. Does anyone else have any other suggestions? Um, the
Like I said, the
regional
Facebook
Facebook
page.
groups
Yeah.
through
Hmm.
PTSO are usually the best way to do that as far as other GCA students. That's really the best suggestion that I have. I'll think on that a few minutes more. Let me see if I can think of anything else.
Sometimes in
Um,
your area, your rec department may have activities that are age specific, or sometimes local civic organizations will have camps and things that are age specific. So you can look in your community for different events that will be housed for students of a certain age.
Yeah, we definitely
Okay.
understand that for sure.
All right. Thank you guys so much.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. All right, Melissa has a question.
Morning, everybody. Can you hear
Hi,
me?
yes, we can hear you.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. I have a question, and maybe help me get a little bit more organized to help my son for his IA test. I printed out the syllabus and I printed out the study guides, and I also like save Google Docs and things that the teacher shares during the class so we can study later. And in the first one was pretty straightforward, but in the second IAs, I found that some of the subjects were, when I look at the syllabus, they were supposed to be covered like in April and May next year, and then they were covering the test this year. And thankfully, his teacher covered some of these during class, so he was prepared for these questions. But um, they appear in the syllabus to be covered for next year. So they were not in the review guide either. Our teacher was great, and she covered all this through the daily, weekly works and things like that. So he learned what he needed. But I wasn't able to study more or go deeper in these subjects with him and make him feel, I guess, more confident or something like that. Or myself, like, hey, that came in your test. That was not in the study guide and not in the syllabus until next year. So that was my only confusion there, like to more specific to get him ready so he knows exactly what he needs to know per period or something like that.
Right. So I know for ELA, a lot of times our standards, or not a lot of times, pretty much all of our standards are repeated throughout the year. So sometimes, even though they may not learn a standard in an instructional cycle, they may have either already gone over that standard, and then they'll come back and hit it again maybe next semester. So sometimes, there may not be a standard taught in one specific instructional cycle, but our interim assessments are cumulative. So they'll kind of continue to build as the year goes on. Um, and then if there's any like specific questions or content, questions like you had on the IA, you can definitely send those into your teacher and then they can get them to me and we can kind of work through those. Yeah, like I said, our standards definitely, we spiral all year long, kind of going through those standards. Does that help answer your question a little bit?
Yes, thank you. I think
You're
so.
welcome. All right, Xavier, am I saying Xavier? Is that right? I saw your message in the chat. How to help study a spelling list. One of the things that I have always found most beneficial for studying a spelling list is the say, spell, say method. You say the word, you spell the word, you say the word. So I would say thank, 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 and I would go through the list with my kids every single day. So that's one method, and then I always have them write them. They write them one time a day, and then we say, spell, say those words every day. And it really kind of drills it into their head and they're able to conquer those spelling lists. Sometimes those are the hardest things for kiddos because they can read the word, but then you ask them to write the word and they can't always spell it. So it's definitely something that, is very useful for our kiddos. So I hope that answers your question, but that's definitely what I have found to be one of the easiest ways. Yes, repetition and practice, definitely. Like Miss Bailey said in the chat box. So I hope that answered your question. And I see Claudia has a question.
Hi, good evening. Yes, I was just wondering, like those programs, SOAR, and I see that the teacher has Epic as well. Is there any like type of contest or like motivation for them to read every 20 minutes? Like let's say you'll get dojo points or something. Um,
Mhm.
because she went to like public school right here where we live, and they would like recognize them by the end of the month if they read like 500 like minutes or something like that a month.
So I know that some of our teachers use Class Dojo. Some of them do not, some of them do. But I will tell you one program that your teachers have set up is the Book It program through Pizza Hut. And so as your students are reading every month, they can turn that time and books read into the teacher, and then they'll get certificates for free pizza every month. So I think we set our goal in K to 2 for 10 books. And so if they go through, and like I said, we have to kind of, if they're reading if they're in second grade, they're reading a, 5 or 6 chapter book, we kind of have to be, we don't expect them to read 10, 5 or 6 chapter books every month. So we can kind of look at that. But we are, like I said, using the Book It program, and they will get that individual pizza at the end of the month if they meet their goal.
And that's through dojo.
No,
Or
that's just through the teachers have set those accounts up. And so
like
ask
if
your
I
teacher
ask
about it.
her,
If you have not heard anything about it yet, ask
yeah.
your teacher about it,
Uh-huh.
because I know that they've all set them up. So we'll kind of look through and see about making sure you guys have that information.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good evening, everyone. This is Veronica, your primary family school partnership coordinator. It is 7:30, and so we're going to wrap up this evening. If you didn't get any of your questions answered, or you still have more questions, definitely feel free to reach out to your family engagement liaison or your content teachers. And if they can't answer it, they are going to reach out to their leads as well to support you. Thank you for having a great. Thank you for coming and have a great night. The recording will be sent out to you tomorrow with your primary parent university and the main parent meeting in case you missed some things. So thank you guys for attending, and have a good night.